Be very, very quiet. We're hunting rabbit.
We're hunting airline miles. Hello and welcome to Dots, Lines, and Destinations, episode 76. It's March 5th, 2015. I'm Steven Seagraves, joined this week by Foz Mahmood. Hey, Foz.
Hello.
How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Pretty good. And we also have Seth Miller. Seth?
Bonjour.
Back from a whirlwind tour of Montreal.
Mais oui, bien sûr.
Today we're going to discuss a number of... What?
Wait, is he going to do this podcast in simulcast?
Oh,
given
God.
his experience this week?
We have to do the whole show in French. Oh.
For the record, I asked how long it would take to get off script. The answer was 43 seconds. And I think, and that's only if you don't count me talking in French to begin.
I think we should blame Foz, though, because he kind of just derailed it right in the intro.
Absolutely.
How did you not jump on that opportunity?
I think you did it perfectly. I'm just saying I was going to bet the under in 43 seconds. I might have still won. I don't think I would have set the line right at 43 seconds. I probably would have given us a full minute to try to stay on track this week. But
it bodes well for an hour and a half long show.
Yeah.
Today we're going to discuss a number of topics, including a DOT decision, some hotel promos, Uber and Starwood teaming up, some possible changes to the LaGuardia perimeter rule, the first Bombardier CS300 flight, and some opinions about being jumped or bumped from a flight when the options really don't work in your favor, and Turkish baths. So let's just jump right in and talk about that DOT decision. Seth?
Yeah, passengers sort of got screwed. Only sort of. I'm really torn on this. So this goes back to the United sort of $50 to $70 first class tickets out of London, priced in Danish kroners.
Yep.
I think we talked about that a couple weeks ago. And United said, "Go screw yourselves. We're not honoring this." The DOT eventually received thousands of complaints and sided with United. And sort of the language of the DOT ruling was basically there was bad faith put forth by all the consumers, so there's no need to honor this. And it's, on the one hand, I certainly understand, like, the rule was never meant to protect against, I'll say, an honest mistake, I don't think. That said, the rule explicitly says mistakes have to be, are still protected. So, or the guidance on the rule. The rule itself doesn't say that, but the DOT guidance on how they expected to implement it said, no, if you make a mistake, you still have to honor it. So it's a weird sort of change of pace and change of view from the DOT.
Is there justification? Was there a justification reason given for that?
A lot of it was they're citing the manipulation of the website, which I got to tell you, I was in Canada this week and I bought a ticket on the United website at one point that was used the Canada version of the website, and I had to use my U.S. credit card. And I was like, gosh, am I manipulating the website here? Am I breaking some rule?
Yep.
And clearly that's the cynic in me, and I know the answer is no, but at some level, according to the DOT and United stance, arguably I was. Right? I buy tickets out of Europe all the time. I'm in the middle of a 3-trip sort of back-to-back-to-back set where all of them have originated in Europe somewhere.
Yeah. And that's like my VPN it actually puts me in Canada. My VPN is it's my company's VPN, and it's based in Canada. So everything I do when the VPN's connected actually makes me look like I'm Canadian. So for me, I would be breaking the website every time.
Yeah, how good for you.
I'm not surprised they didn't honor it, but I think the rules are really being stretched.
Well, and here's the thing: I am surprised that they didn't honor it, but for the same reason. I think that the way the rule is written, the DOT probably should have forced them to honor it, but also should have considered changing the rule.
Because what I would say is, they can say that it's a different point of sale or whatever. At the end of the day, it's still United.com. It is still hosted in the U.S.
Right, and that was my sort of take on it as well. I wrote a little something about this. This is a U.S.-based company operating, and maybe you say, okay, flights not operated by United don't count, but I'm not sure even that's reasonable. But as a U.S.-based company operating flights in the U.S., and all the planes are based here, at some point you have to hold them responsible to U.S. rules, don't you?
Do you think some of this has to do with the blogosphere kind of like kicking it up a bit and saying, oh, jump on this mistake? I mean, because a lot of the wording on the post about this fare were, get this mistake. Clearly it's a mistake, and then giving details on how to book it.
I don't believe that the word mistake matters.
No.
I know there's some people who think it does. I don't.
Okay.
I might be wrong.
But do you think that, like, it being so prevalent out there on the blogs where it was published as, a deal or anything with details on how to make it work has any impact on whether it's honored or not by the DOT?
I think the volume of transactions may have, ultimately.
Just how many people bought?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm trying to remember now. I think it was the long time ago, the Seattle to Tokyo B fare that Continental sold.
Yep.
Remember that one?
Yep.
And it had to be long enough ago because it was you could route on Northwest Metal, so that dates it somewhat. I vaguely remember that someone telling me that they got their alerts the following morning when someone got to the office, and they apparently Continental System at the time would generate sort of exception reports of these city searches had more frequency than normal. And someone had a graph, and it was like the Seattle to Tokyo City pair was 3, 10, 4, 7, 4,000. Right. And so that was a hint for them to go check in. So if there were 4,000 searches, then maybe 1,000 I don't know what the actual number was. I think someone told me at one point. I just don't remember it anymore. But you get to this point where at some point the company will honor it as a sign of good faith and sort of good customer service. But they can only do that to a limited extent. They can only do that where the cost of doing so is smart business. Yeah. And when you have to honor, if thousands of people filed DOT claims and not everybody filed a DOT claim, and United said thousands of tickets were issued, are we talking low 5 figures? Maybe, or high 4? Would they have said tens of thousands versus thousands? I don't know.
Well, I think it hints at something that Lufthansa, from what we've heard, cut off all first-class space at some point.
They managed to zero out inventory, we think.
Yeah, we think, because it instantly went to nothing in the middle of some transactions. So,
But that I wonder if that actually happened, or if it was just that everyone was hitting it at the same time.
It darn as well could be, but I was surprised to see it go for so many dates, because I looked at a bunch of random dates and I couldn't find anything, and nothing. That's kind of hard to believe.
I'm inclined to believe that they did, but part of me wonders. On most planes, there's only 8 seats.
True.
With the amount that this was published, it's very possible I was grabbing the seat while people were trying to book it and then not being able to confirm it when it went to issue.
True. Very true. So I wonder what this means too, Seth. Do you have any opinions on what this means for future DOT decisions if there's a mistake? We're seeing a lot of fares, premium cabin fares in particular, where the price is relatively low. In comparison to what they used to be. I've seen $1,200 business class tickets. I saw a $1,500 to Lima out of Portland the other day.
Yeah.
Is that a mistake? Because that's not what it usually goes for.
No, and I think at some level it's going to come down to the airlines are going to be able to legitimately say we didn't actually intend to sell $1 first class tickets.
Yeah.
And we can show a pricing history. We can show this, and maybe they even go so far as to share internal documentation of an email of someone analyst saying, should we lower this number? I don't know how that actually happens with the analysts and stuff, but maybe they go that far with the DOT and that stuff we never see. But I think that this sort of consumer protection rule has been gutted a little bit. I don't want to, there have been a bit over the top, in my opinion, hyperbolic sort of, oh my God, we're all screwed blog posts out there. I don't think it's quite that bad, but I do think that there is now much more of a question with any one of these transactions as to whether it really is a real deal, or this is something that's, we have to question whether it's going to be honored. I think one of the biggest challenges is going to be for flights to and from the United States, even that used to sort of be, at least you knew you were covered for that. The DOT is now saying, well, it also has to be sold by an airline based in the United States or a vendor based in the United States, and even apparently on their U.S.-focused website. That to me is really where the protection seems to have fallen apart.
Yeah. So if you buy the ticket while you're in Europe and you're connecting to the United States or you're coming to the United States, protection may fall short.
Has the U.S. government just told every European consumer, you have no protections here, go screw yourself? Or we get protection from EU rules. They don't get any protection from us. That's kind of shitty.
Yeah.
What I'll say is, in more recent memory, I don't know if they're going to back out of every mistake fare, but you look at the Boston Seoul fares, they honored those. They never even said anything about them.
Yeah.
I think the problem with this one was it was just way too published and was egregiously used. People are booking Lufthansa first for, London to Joburg and anywhere and everywhere.
Right. And to me, part of that says, and I actually lost a beer with someone online over a bet on this. I bet that those tickets, the ones that never touched the U.S., would be killed, but anything to or from the U.S. would be honored. That was my bet. Because
and you lost.
The DOT, and I lost. So, it cost me a beer and a Lufthansa first class ticket that I didn't really pay for. So, win some, lose some. No, I'm surprised that the DOT backed down as much as it did. I think that it presents some interesting challenges in terms of future rule interpretation. The DOT has indicated previously, they published something middle of maybe May of 2014, saying they were looking more into fares that had been circulated on blogs and online communities and bad faith dealings by customers. But when they published that, they never said what they were going to do about it. They just said they were looking into it. Now we know apparently what they're going to do about it, and they're doing it without a published rulemaking. They're doing it without a comment period. They're basically just changed the rules.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty evident that United clearly talked to the DOT before they made their decision.
I'm not as convinced they talked before. Well, I'm sure there was some conversation before, but it still took the DOT over a week to come back with a real answer.
Well, I think what probably happened was they discussed that. United probably said, "This is our stance on it. We're going to cancel these fares," and they probably said, "Okay, that's a fair way to look at it," but that didn't give them a blessing on it, and then they did their formal investigation.
And something interesting I pointed out to you guys was the front page of the United website when the DOT decision came out was up at the top on the little thing next to important notices.
Yeah,
that's the first time I've ever seen that regarding a fare that they've published or
they had to.
Yeah.
And this comes back to how the DOT rules work a little bit. They're required to notify customers when things like this happen. And so they used that rather than individual emails as their notification method. And the DOT actually, in its statement, also said that it was putting it on the DOT site rather than sending individual messages to everybody as its notification method.
So was there that many people? That's my question.
I think so.
Here's the thing. Sending 10,000 emails is really easy. That's what I don't understand. Like, okay, I get it. You don't want to, like, what, you can't do a mail merge? Like, you already sent the emails canceling all our tickets. You've got a list of all these PNRs somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, I suspect what it is, if they send you an individual email, then people are more inclined to respond. Because a lot of people in these cases, they're like, I win some, I lose some, or they'll buy it, they get a refund, okay, I lost, and they walk away. You have that probably 10-15% that'll try to fight it all the way. So if you don't individually engage them, that's one less, you're not opening the door for them.
Yeah. Seth, you got some hotel promos to tell us about, I think.
Yes, I do. There are, as often the case, we've got the sort of spring or winter, whatever season we're in, Q1-ish, hotel promos out there. Hyatt's got sort of individual promotions. It's been out since mid-January, but they sent me an email again this week reminding me that after a certain number of stays, you earn bonus points. IHG's has also been out for a while with, again, individualized sort of targeted numbers. Mine is up to 50,500 points, which I will get 0 of. Starwood's is out now, which I've completely blanked on what it is, and Hilton's is just straight double points on all stays, sort of February, March, April, I think. What is the Starwood one? Do you guys have
Starwood is something like you get double points for Friday through Sunday stays, I think, and then or maybe it's triple points and then double for Monday through Friday or something. It's not that lucrative because I think it tops out at 5,000 points or something per stay. I have to look it up. Should have had that handy. I apologize.
Yeah, I should have too. You put it on my script.
We don't have the producer with us today. He's at brunch, so
He's
busy being a hipster.
Yeah, he sends us pictures from Brooklyn. I don't know what's going on.
What was I going to say? I will say I was both happy and sad this week. I had unexpected stays at an IHG and a Hilton property over the last 2 nights related to the CS300 event, which we'll get to in a little bit. And I was super excited that I was finally going to actually get some bonus points out of these things. And I logged in and looked at the IHG promo that I got, and staying at a Crowne Plaza got me 0. And I logged in and looked at the Hilton one. I even registered for it and then got the confirmation email, and it kicks in on March 1st. And my stay was on February 27th. So I'll still get the regular points, and it's fine. But I finally was, as the guy who hates all these hotel promos because they never work for me, I was finally thank goodness I'm going to have reimbursed stays. I'm going to earn some points. It's going to be free. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to get nothing.
So there's 2 possible bonuses with Starwood. It's called the Starwood Double Play. It's been going on since January 5th, and it runs through April 15th. It's double star points calculated on base star points earned on eligible stays of 2 or more consecutive nights, plus a 1,000-point bonus for every 5 eligible nights up to 4,000 maximum. There's no limit to the number of double points you can earn during the period, but you can only earn those incremental 1,000-point bonuses up to a maximum of 4 times.
So 20 nights total?
Yeah. So I have an 18-night stay coming up.
Sweet.
That one is I'm going to rake them in on that one.
You're going away for 18 days. Is this vacation or work?
It's work.
Not so sweet.
Yeah, I'm not thrilled.
You don't get to go home in between?
No. So I have to work Saturday. Everybody has to do it. All of us are there for 18 days. Well, there's 4 of us there for 18 days. The rest of us are there for 2 weeks. So
you get hazard pay?
Awesome.
No hazard pay on this one. I get Saturday pay, I guess. I don't know. They haven't really told us. They just said you need to be there. You just need to be there Monday morning at 6 a.m. So
we haven't told you what you're going to get paid, but get your ass there.
Exactly. So,
awesome.
So they'll give you a Chipotle gift card when you arrive.
Probably, or a swift kick in the butt. So. And speaking of Starwood, just going to get off that topic. Uber and Starwood have teamed up in what seems like a really cool partnership. So as soon as you stay one qualifying stay at a Starwood property and you've registered with Starwood and Uber, you earn one star point per every dollar spent on Uber. So if you take a ride for $56, it's 56 star points. If it's during a Starwood stay, a preferred member gets $2 or 2 points per dollar. A gold platinum gets 3 points per dollar, and a platinum with 75 nights gets 4 points per dollar on Uber rides. So, which is pretty awesome.
It's for both it's all calendar days related to the stay. So, the full day before you check in and the full day after you check out still earn the bonus points.
Which is what happens to a lot of people. You take the Uber to the hotel.
To or from the airport, yeah.
Yeah, and to or from the airport. And so it's lucrative.
And even, I know we have one friend, business traveler, who was super excited. He flew home and then took Uber home from the airport. He still gets the 4 points per dollar for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's only up to $10,000 US. So I guess as a platinum with 75 nights, you kind of max out at 40,000 star points.
But, yeah, and that's assuming you only take Uber during stays.
Yeah, only during stays.
And you somehow managed to spend $10,000 on Uber during your stays, which seems like an egregiously high number.
I need to go through how much I spent last year in New York. I should pull those numbers.
Although, if you're doing 100 nights because you're a Starwood 100, whatever, ambassador thingy, 100 nights, that's still $100 a day while you're at the hotel.
It really depends. High. It really depends on where you're at, though. You
could spend $100 easily in New York in a day.
Yeah. On Uber, if you're going, I had to go up to, the Bronx. That was an easy $75 ride one way.
Okay, but are you doing that round trip every day?
I was there for a while.
They must fucking love you.
And I wasn't getting any credits for it. No, I'm just playing.
Also worth noting, if you're paying with your American Express card tied to your Uber account, you still get the double membership rewards points. Deal there. So
a nice little double dip there.
Yeah,
this is one of the better partnerships that we were talking about this earlier that we've seen. This is Star Points are one of the more valuable point programs that we all like, and Uber's relatively convenient. There are questions about their ethics and business practices, but as far as
a lot of answers about them also, none of which are positive.
Yes,
let's be clear.
And so, I as far as a transportation company teaming up with a hotel and a point program, it's pretty lucrative. I like the idea of it because in Europe, especially, some of the Uber cars and stuff, they're easier to get than a cab. In Paris, we used it to the airport because getting a cab where we were at near the Louvre, it was near impossible, but the Uber was there in 5 minutes. So,
I'm going to admit something that I haven't admitted to anyone. I have yet to use Uber.
Wow.
I've only used it once.
Any reason, Foz? You mostly like to drive, though.
I do mostly drive. Yeah, I mostly drive. In New York, I've had decent luck with cabs. So when I need them. So otherwise, I do drive most of the time.
Yeah.
I will get us more off our agenda here today. I walked out of the airport this morning at LaGuardia as the first person off the 7 a.m. Delta shuttle, which landed at 8:15. So not surprisingly, I was the first person out in the taxi line, and I was like, "Yep, 40 cabs lined up, ready to go. Good thing I called Uber." Somewhat snarky about the situation in my own brain. There was obviously no one to talk to, so I was just talking to myself. But showed up and, knocked on the window of the dispatcher. He gets out to put me in a car, and there was no driver visible in the first cab.
and he's blocking the whole thing, right?
The goodie, they can get out. It's okay. We sort of looked at each other a little confused, and he leans over. And we started looking more closely. The windows are a little dirty from the salt spray and whatnot. Knocks on the window, and the guy sort of was hunched over beside the steering wheel. And sort of jerked to and sat up and was like, "Oh yeah, no, I'm awake, we can go." And then I was a little concerned at that point. I kind of like my drivers to be awake. I think that's a good thing when you're going across, down the BQE or through the Midtown Tunnel. Being coherent for that's a good idea. And he sat up, and I got in the cab. I put my bag down on the seat next to me. I pulled the door closed behind me, and he looks at me. And he starts spraying an air freshener and almost sort of huffing the air freshener. It's like, "Yeah, I'm just going to spray this a little bit and wake myself up."
What?
At which point I opened the door, got right back out, looked at the dispatcher, looked at me a little funny. I'm like, "I don't feel safe driving with him. I'm sorry. I will not take that cab," and got in the guy behind him. Absolutely would not take the cab.
Wow. Yeah. So I used to take the cabs from LaGuardia as well. At the central terminal building on the side that faces the one that's kind of over by itself, which people don't seem to know about.
You turn right when you walk out, and you go all the way down to the end around the corner.
Yeah. I never had more than a 5-minute wait there. And so I hardly ever used Uber out of LaGuardia. But at JFK and Newark, it was much easier for me because JFK, coming in on the red eyes, I usually caught the rest of the red eyes that were in, and sometimes the BA flight, the early morning BA flight, I guess. It was that got in at 7 or 8 or whatever. And so I would always wait in line, but the Ubers were easy there. So,
yeah.
And I was usually going up to the Bronx or Westchester, so Uber was easy.
There's a BA flight. There's a BA flight that gets in at 8 o'clock in the morning.
There was something. It was an early morning.
Can't be that
one,
early, but
it was.
I don't think
that.
it's not.
Well, I was probably delayed. That's what it was. So I have to go. I have to go look at my receipts.
Could be Cathay.
Could have been Cathay.
Because that would come in around that time.
Yeah.
The only time I used Uber was JFK midnight. There was a long line,
and you just get tired of waiting.
I was like, I look at it, I'm like, it was moving pretty quick. It probably would have been a 15-minute line. It wouldn't have been the end of the world. And I ended up calling an Uber. It turned out to be some guy who had borrowed his friend's account and was like, was driving the wrong car and was the wrong person from the picture and all those things. And at the time, I didn't entirely realize what was going on until I was in the car, and he was horrible, and I shouldn't have never taken it. But, I had a couple credits, so it was vaguely free, so I guess that was nice. I didn't die. That was an added bonus. I forgot to mention, the second cab I got into, his meter broke halfway through the ride.
Nice.
Yeah. Classic. So we talked about it and just agreed on what the fare should be. The goodness is, I give him credit. He didn't try to screw me. He started right at the number, which the meter fare almost always is for me to come home from LaGuardia. So nice. It was fine. But speaking of ride sharing services, did you see Lyft is hiring drivers? Are you interested?
Oh.
They're paying. I have to say, one of the things that's been most interesting to me about this is their advertising. I've seen a lot of the blog posts advertising, get $1,000 if you sign up as a Lyft driver. They're aggressively recruiting. The part that most of those posts are leaving out is it's actually a $2,000 split.
I get $1,000 for referring you, and you get $1,000 for driving. Yeah.
Yep. Wow. And it seems like a lot of people are forgetting to mention half of that. It just pisses me off when I see that. But anyways,
I'll post that this afternoon so I can
piss me off a little more.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Happy birthday! Enjoy your birthday, pissing me off. That can be your present from me.
Happy birthday!
Oh, thank you.
I don't think he actually really gets to celebrate a birthday this year.
No, not this year. I'm a leap year baby.
Just a blink of an eye.
Yeah.
Vaz, I want to ask you, since we were talking about LaGuardia a little bit, what? We have a script. I'm trying to follow it. Since we're talking about a little bit about
I almost just snarfed all the water I was drinking right there. Thank you.
We were talking about LaGuardia, and there's been talk and rumors of a perimeter rule change. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I haven't read all the details about it, but what I read this week in Wall Street Journal reported that there's being consideration given to dropping the perimeter rule at LaGuardia. So currently from LaGuardia, you can only fly 1,500 miles, with the exception of Saturdays, and where you can fly anywhere. And on there's the other exception is Denver, and I had no idea where the perimeter rule came from. So what I learned was that Denver was an exception because there was a high amount of business traffic, is what they defined. So, and they, at the time of the perimeter rule, they believed that you get to most business destinations within 1,500 miles. So it was interesting. Now, there was something else that I read. I forget where I read it, but apparently Delta is responsible for wanting this rule changed.
Well, of course.
Which makes sense. But
they own the most slots.
They own the most slots. I still want to know who owns that terminal that they're using right now, because that could be an interesting kink in the whole thing.
Is this the one we think that Continental still owns?
Yes. Which would be great if someone just called them to the carpet going, "We want our building back." But it's interesting that clearly they want to fly most likely LA and San Francisco from LaGuardia. But is it worth cannibalizing the revenue from JFK? Because clearly they would cannibalize a lot of revenue out of JFK.
Absolutely. So the part the thing about that makes me, I have to wonder, is how much of it is OD versus connecting.
Yeah.
There's a lot of domestic connections that happen at LaGuardia right now, because all the secondary markets are LaGuardia. So, and the other thing,
how many of those are going to come? How many of those would be sort of a reasonable connection to? You're not going to flow passengers through there to JFK and San Francisco, or to LA and San Francisco. Those are, especially for Delta, who's got Detroit, Minneapolis, and Atlanta, that would all be smarter connections for basically everybody but Boston.
Oh, maybe not. I mean, you look at the timings of, think like Portland or Maine. There's a fine number of Portland, Maine, or Bangor. Small cities up north, they fly LaGuardia and they fly 1 or 2 flights to Detroit. The Detroit flights are very ill-timed for a lot of connections, whereas the LaGuardia flights are more frequent.
Okay. I guess my point was, like, there's also like Norfolk and Cleveland and, a whole bunch of business markets that are south and or west of LaGuardia that aren't going to backtrack. And, I mean, a lot of the premium market, right, I guess, and it's also a question of premium seats versus coach seats. Premium market is, I feel like, almost all O&D traffic, and the back of the bus fills up with anyone they can get to take a seat.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. With some of the discounted first fares, there's a lot more.
JetBlue, right? I mean,
yeah. Well,
JetBlue's fault.
Yep.
But so there's also the interesting, someone noticed on Twitter, I think it was Airline Flyer, at Airline Flyer.
Yeah.
He noticed this. He was flying JFK Seattle, which is supposed to be one of their premium routes, one of the BE routes, right? Their business elite.
Yes.
And it was on 738
So Ned Russell, who is also a great Twitter guy, E. Russell on Twitter, or E_Russell on Twitter, I guess, actually got an exclusive, and it's behind a paywall for his, I think he writes for, I don't remember who he writes for.
Flight Global.
Flight Global, so it's behind their paywall right now. But the short version is Delta has admitted that it's a failed experiment, and they are no longer marketing Seattle as a business elite market.
So I have to wonder, like, if you do the same thing with LaGuardia and just focus on just LA, San Francisco, I think it's a failed experiment as well there. Unless they're thinking about doing it to, like, the other markets in the Bay Area and the LA area, which I'm not sure they can do, right? I mean, San Jose City, maybe? Oakland?
So there's no way there's demand for those LaGuardia.
I would think not.
I would argue that the part of it is there's a lot of international traffic that goes on to LA and San Francisco from JFK.
So this is what I'm getting at, is how much of it's connecting versus O&D.
Right.
And the other thing, shuttle people across town. I mean, officially they do, right? They have a published policy where Delta will pay for your shuttle across town for connections less than 6 hours.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's in the contract of carriage, believe it or not.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and there's threads all over Flyer talk about how incompetent they are at actually delivering on it. Shockingly.
You mean you get to ride on one of those buses that say world's greatest employees ride on this bus?
I think they put you in like one of the shared vans, but it just depends. But they will actually provide that transportation for you. You're supposed to get a voucher somewhere, and sometimes it's a shared taxi or whatever. But no, Delta, like, they acknowledge that that's part of their flow. I just wonder how much of that would work if they pulled traffic out of San Francisco and LA.
Yeah, and it's LaGuardia slot controlled, right?
Right.
So that brings up the other interesting point is, when they did that slot swap, we saw a lot of secondary markets lose competitive carriers. So it went to single carrier, and now clearly Delta's going to have to poach those slots to do longer flights.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's the other question. Is like, as you said, LaGuardia is great for connecting opportunities, but if I have to take away 10 daily flights to serve, 6 to LA and 4 to San Francisco, what 10 do I cut? Am I cutting connections now?
Yeah. I mean, and I imagine that if they do, they'd also
find a way, but
they'll do Phoenix. They might do Seattle. They'll probably Salt Lake, as they have a hub there.
I mean, this opens up. I mean, if it was to go through, other airlines would jump on this too. I mean, I'm sure Alaska would want to be in on it.
Well, it would open up a war for slots. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the value of those slots would jack up rapidly. It's not. And the other thing is, right, that DC has a similar rule, but they have exception slots.
Yep.
And so maybe the answer is that some exception slots are granted and they get tracked differently than the regular slots. I don't know.
But when you look at where Reagan's located versus Dulles or BWI, they're much further apart.
I agree.
And it's not like, right now Dulles is hard to get to. JFK is not that hard to get to. Public transportation goes there. There's plenty of highway connectivity.
Yeah, I agree with all those things. I just, if you're going to do it, I would think it would be much worse overall for the sort of travel community world to just open it up 100% immediately.
Agreed.
One of the other interesting things I saw a research document from one of the financial services companies. I don't remember which one now. I'm having trouble finding the email, but basically had a graph of the sort of share of market by the different airlines in the New York to DC, or New York, LA, and New York, San Francisco space, and it was basically showing share of market and sort of percentage of domestic seats, or I think it was percentage of domestic seats in that market, and then what that market share was. And so it's like Virgin America has 31% of its domestic ASMs in the transcon market, but only 9% of the market share.
Wow. That's rough.
Yeah. They apparently are. Here, I just found it. Let me scroll down and read here. It's Virgin America has 30% of its transcon capacity. Is 30% of its total capacity is transcons, and it has 17% of the market share between JFK, Newark, and San Francisco, LA. So they stand to lose horribly if this opens up and people say, well, now I don't need to go to JFK anymore.
Well, you raise an interesting thing. Do they give up their slots at Dallas to start flying across the country?
I don't think they give them up at Dallas. I think they add different service at Dallas and move LaGuardia service to be transcons. Maybe they saw this coming in and they're going to take a flyer on it. Interestingly, United has 42% of the market share for transcons because they have both the PS service and the Newark nonstops.
Yeah. They have a lot of lift.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the other thing I didn't realize about this perimeter rule is it's a rule that the Port Authority made up.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
What was the reasoning behind it?
To give JFK and Newark a better opportunity to grow.
Oh.
Same reason all these rules exist.
So the reason that LaGuardia is a dump is because they made it a dump.
Basically. But remember that, actually, LaGuardia, it's a little easier to blame the Port Authority. The Port Authority only controls, if I remember correctly, 3 buildings across all 3 airports. It's the Central Terminal building, Terminal B at Newark, maybe in Terminal A at Newark are the only 3 that the Port Authority fully controls. All the others are privately. What's that?
Yeah, it's A and B. I thought B was a private. Was now a partnership. I think recently it went private.
Okay, then it's like A, the Central Terminal building, and then that's it, maybe. I don't think they actually control anything at JFK. Terminal 1 they don't control, Terminal 2 they don't control, Terminal 4 they don't control, Terminal 5 they don't control, 7 they don't control, and 8 they don't control.
They don't control 7? I mean, that's like the 6th circle of hell, so...
That's British Airways.
It's a BA terminal, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
5th circle, then, I guess.
But they're mighty pleasant.
Because you like the accent? You give them kind of a little slack?
I give them a circle.
How generous of you.
Well, that explains everything about the Central Terminal building, then, though.
Yeah.
It's the pit of despair.
Hey, it's got a nice Amex lounge now.
With water dripping from the ceiling.
They still have the tarps draining into garbage cans in the middle of the terminal as the snow melts, just in case. But I was actually at LaGuardia earlier this week.
Oh yeah, what were you doing there?
Yeah. I was flying to Montreal.
Are you there today?
I was also there today, coming home. Fortunately, but on Wednesday I flew up to Montreal. Bombardier put the CS300 into flight for the first time, so that's the stretch version of their C series new clean sheet regional jet that they're trying to sell.
Sweet.
Yeah, it was an epically cold event, but we were out at Mirabel, which is, I still can't believe that actually had commercial service at one point.
Actually, I'm not sure that's actually true. I think they may have tried it. I think they may have tried it and abandoned it. Like they abandoned it really quickly.
Planes never landed, or like after a couple weeks.
Maybe like a week or two. Let me look it up while you're talking.
Yeah, well, please. Pseudo produce here for us. It was.
Why are you surprised?
It was $100 taxi ride to get out there. It's the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
Ooh.
$100 cab ride. I mean, it's Canadian dollars, but still. For them, that's the same thing as, how we see dollars. So, no, it was, sorry, bad currency joke. It was like a 45-minute ride from downtown with no traffic. So it was really way out in the middle of nowhere. Other than that, it was lovely. I mean, we sat out, Bombardier put on a good show. They brought us out, to the tarmac, or actually like on the runways. We were on the taxiway, relatively close to where, like, between the two main, sort of the main taxiway and then that runs parallel to the runway. We were on one of like the little cross spurs between the two. So, and they let us basically walk almost the full length of it. We couldn't get right up to the runway for the takeoff, but we were pretty damn close. On the downside, it was like -8 Celsius or something like that. So call it 10 degrees outside. Ooh. And we were standing out there for an hour.
Oof.
Waiting for the departure. Like, we watched it taxi, and we're like, okay, they're ready. And then it just sort of sat down at the end of the runway. It turns out after the fact they told us they had some new test equipment that they were trying to run, and that was what malfunctioned, not anything actually related to the plane. So they spent like 45 minutes trying to get the test equipment fixed, and then said, screw it, we got to get this plane in the air. It was also kind of funny. For whatever reason, no one had a scanner, so no one was listening to air traffic control. Shame on me also, but you would have thought that would have been part of the situation. But they finally were like, okay, we don't know what's going on. This is going to take a while. And they were pulling us out of air stairs out to the plane so some mechanics could get up and look at it. And we saw that sort of run down the other side taxiway. And they put us all back on the buses finally so we could start to, not get frostbite. And then all of a sudden, like, we started driving actually off the field. We were going to go back to the building. And then all of a sudden you heard the noise and everybody turned and looked and the chase plane took off. It was like, slammed on the brakes of the bus, opened the door, we all got out and ran back over. And like, for me, it's easy. I just had a camera, my SLRs over my shoulder. I felt bad for the guys doing video work that had like the big tripods and the big video camera work that had basically run back across, 100 yards or whatever, 100 meters, I guess, because we were in Canada, and set everything back up to get their shots. And like, at that point, they weren't waiting for us anymore. The chase plane was in the air. And so it went up, got up to a couple thousand feet, did a loop. And as it came back down the runway, the CS300 gunned it and was up and gone.
Wow.
So got a couple shots, thawed out midday yesterday midday today, really, several hours later. But it was a very cool experience. Got to walk around inside one of the CS100s up in the flight deck. It was one of their flight test vehicles. So it has the whole, test rig inside. It had all the seats inside for their evac test.
So how many people can be seated in a CS100? It's
designed for ideally 110. Max capacity for evac testing, I believe he said they did 153.
Wow.
That was I sat in one of the seats and was like, this sucks. He's like, no, this isn't how it will be, I promise. This is for the evac testing. And if we did this many rows, we would use slimline seats. It would be better. And like, he got very defensive, justifiably so. And I don't hold it against him. They packed as many seats in as they can because evac testing is
Max.
Basically, it's absolute max that an airline could ever install, and that's what you get certified against. Very few airlines fly at that number.
And then CS300 is how many seats?
CS300 goes from 110 normally to about 135 normally.
Okay.
So that's 5 extra rows. It's basically an extra fuselage section.
And so it's kind of like a little A319 then.
The 300 gets up to be about 319 size.
Yeah.
It's interesting is they are the only player in this market. Boeing and Airbus have seeded the small planes going big, and Embraer has capped out at 100 and isn't going bigger than that with the E95, E2 series, whatever we're calling that. So they are the only player in the market. The question, I guess, is the Sukhois going bigger than that also, or are they staying smaller?
I can't remember if the Sukhoi, I think it might have maxed out at 110. I think so.
So then we'll call that maybe, stay in the E2 space, the E90s. So they are the only player in this space. The question is there a market at that space?
And what do they think?
Well, it was a sales pitch and media day, so they were super excited. They sold 243 right now. They, the CEO is brand new. He came in. They just did a whole reorg because the program wasn't going so well. It's been delayed and sales numbers haven't been great. So after all of that, they brought in this guy, and he's talking the talk and saying all the right things. It'll be interesting to see if they can deliver on it. It's a regional jet with a 2,400 nautical mile range.
Wow.
Montreal to Caracas.
That's crazy.
Works with this plane. So it's just a big region, I guess, is the line I can use. But
so just for reference, the Sukhoi is around 80s, low
so
mid 80s to 100. Yeah.
So what airlines have bought this already?
I don't remember. They have some orders. They do have some orders. They have some firm orders. One of the challenges they have right now is, they're saying entry into service is currently on time, per the latest announced delay, as, these sorts of things happen. I don't blame them for having some delays. They had that uncontrolled or uncontained engine failure a couple months back that knocked a couple months off their schedule, things like that. They say they're back on schedule now for certification later this year, they think. And, the flight tests, they had 5 planes flying flight tests while I was up there on Friday. So they really are pushing the test. They've done all the hard stuff. I think they even said for the CS300, they went all the way to 41,000 feet on the first flight because it was flying so well.
Wow. So here's some orders for you, Vaz and Seth. We've got Lufthansa is buying them for Swiss, Republic, Gulf Air, Odyssey, Korean, Air Baltic, Private Air has 5 on order. Wow. Iraqi Airways has 5 on order.
I hope you don't have to fly one of those on Houston, Amsterdam.
And then there's some commitments.
I don't know if they did it 1-1, it would be pretty nice.
That wouldn't be bad, yeah. And then Malmo Aviation has a total of 5 options, 5 each, so 10 options.
Yeah.
So
there's not a lot of them committed yet. So I think given that Swiss loves the Avro 100, right? So
does Malmo. Malmo has 200 of them, or no, not 200 of them. Sorry, 15 of them or 20 of them, and it's 200.
I was gonna say, what airline has 200 planes that I've never heard of before?
Malmo Aviation. I'm sorry, I was reading it wrong. Yeah.
No, and this seems like the kind of plane that could, fit that niche and go a bit, a little further afield for them. But I don't know. We'll see. They obviously big promises on operating costs and stuff like that. They think so far into the test flight series that they're making their numbers, so that's a good sign. It was a nice little plane. 2-3 seating. I like the 2-2 a lot on the Embraers. The 2-3 didn't seem bad. They had super big overhead bins where regular bags fit wheels in instead of sideways. That was nice. At least on the 3-seat side. They didn't demo the 2-seat side, so probably not. But it's a nice little plane. It was super quiet.
Well, that's good. And with Republic, they have 40 orders for these things.
Yeah.
We could potentially see these on United flights, potentially.
Yeah. Or American or Delta.
Yeah, right. Republic flies for everybody.
Yeah.
But one of the interesting things, the chase plane was a CR9.
That's
actually an American Airlines livery, so that was interesting. We're going to give this to them next week, but we kind of need it this week. We're just going to strap a couple extra cameras on the outside and see what happens. So yeah, the chase plane was an American CR9, so that was entertaining. I got some good shots of it though. And then it went up, and then as the CS300 took off, it sort of flew past us, and then the chase plane came right after it. And just even between those two planes, the difference in volume was noticeable. And the CR9 isn't a loud plane.
Yeah, it's quiet.
They say the official testing suggests that the noise profile sort of envelope for the CS100 matches the Q400.
Wow.
Which is super quiet also.
Yeah.
So that, between that and super efficient engines and yada, 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 it should be a really nice, there's a lot of potential good about this. Someone's got to buy it and start flying it.
Yeah. It sounds like a fun experience though.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I'm very happy I got to cover the story. I'll put a link in the show notes to what I wrote for Airways about it. Airways News.
And we should go back to the Mirabel discussion real quick. So you were right. Mirabel did have commercial service. It's interesting. People should read the history of it. It was actually because of Expo 67 was so many people coming. And they actually, the federal government required that European airlines make Montreal their only Canadian destination. And so Dorval, which is what Trudeau used to be called, grew by nearly 20% every year. And so it was just growing so much that they needed another airport option. And so they picked 97,000 acres out in the middle of nowhere, which it's actually bigger than the entire city of Montreal itself, and built.
It's like Stapleton to Denver.
Yeah, they built Mirabel out there, and it was somewhat successful at first, but it immediately started to decline around 1985. The predictions were just the market was saturated, and they never got that much traffic. So people, and then airlines stopped making the stops in Montreal and Toronto to make transatlantic flights. So that helped kill it off, and now it's just it's almost all cargo, and of course Bombardier, Bell Helicopters there, and there's actually a couple of engine test companies.
I was gonna say we saw the Pratt & Whitney 747 SP take off with the test engine on it,
with the extra engine,
from across the field while we were sitting outside.
It's that hangar is usually like highly off limits.
I'm sure it's still. We just saw like the silhouette of the plane leaving. We heard it actually from across the field, and sort of the AvGeek collection of us all started, ears perked up, and people started guessing on planes and started turning and looking, and eventually from sort of like the behind a berm halfway across the field, we saw a plane take off.
Yeah, when we were there for the Noliner charter, they taxied us by it, and they closed the hangar doors as we were like trying to taxi by.
Wow.
So I don't know what we were gonna get pictures of.
Well, I've seen the Honeywell test plane up close with test engines on it also, and they do a lot of the regional jet engines and APU stuff for bigger planes. So that was there are trade secrets that happen with that stuff, but who knows? Anyway,
you had a fun experience coming home though.
So we were, it's a media event. There's a bunch of us out there. We're all filing. People are filing stories. I filed mine relatively quickly. I was sharing a cab back into town with, I'll say, a real reporter who had more to write and more to work to do, and so he was running a little late, trying to get stuff done. And I was in the taxi ride, much less on the way of internet connectivity. So we waited till the very last minute to leave for my flight home. Got in a cab, hit traffic. There was an accident, so I started to panic a little bit about if I'd make my flight or not after all was said and done. Got through fine. Actually, turned out pre-clearance was no problem. Got to the gate and needed to do a docs check because I hadn't shown my passport to anybody yet. So wanted to get that out of the way early. Walked up to the counter. Hey, just wanted to show you this. Take care of it. Blah blah blah. Before things get crazy. Little did I know how crazy they would get. While I was standing there, one of the agents comes over. I was actually dealing with the station manager or supervisor for the sort of group that we were working with, the red coat. And someone comes over and tells us, like, yeah, we're over by 7 on this flight.
Oh.
And they did some looking at the numbers real quick and cleaned some stuff. I'm like, no, okay, wait, now we're only over by 3. This other family moved to here or something like that. They got someone else rebooked elsewhere earlier. Spring break in Montreal started this week, started on Friday and goes through this coming week, apparently. So all the flights were oversold. And Delta was over by several on the Atlanta flight and on the LaGuardia flight that night. And at one point, much later, a random non-rev walked up and they all laughed at him. So I thought that was entertaining. So I was standing. You talk about sort of taking a bump. You got to be first to the front of the line to get it. I'm like, well, I'm standing here. What do you got? And she said it's $800. And my eyes got super big, and I sort of did a Scrooge McDuck thing. With, swimming through the gold coins of Delta dollars. And I was like, what's the accommodation? She's like, okay, well, it's a hotel. And I'm like, oh, shit. I kind of really need to get home. Is there any way to get home tonight? She's like, nothing to New York. It was completely booked. They looked at, and it was also a 6 p.m. flight. So they looked at options via Toronto, and nothing could, they could get me to Toronto, but nothing from there back down, especially with having to clear immigration and everything again. And it just wasn't happening. I was like, you know what? $800 is a lot of money. I'm going to pass. And I said, if it gets critical, I'll be sitting right over there. Come holler at me. But I really would prefer not to, actually.
This is around the time that you sent us a message.
Yeah, and so I sent you guys a message on IM. I'm like, yeah, just pass on an $800 bump. I don't know what's going on. I'm crazy here, but I just couldn't do it. I got to get home. I was 2 days later, a day and a half later than I expected. It was just like, it's all sorts of crazy. This trip was stressful in just about every way. And I was like, I just want to go home. And every now and then I think that's okay. I just want to go home. But and Foz, I have to owe you a huge thanks. You're like, well, there's a flight to Boston tonight. Which turned out, I didn't realize, I should have, but I didn't realize you were talking about an Air Canada flight. For whatever reason, just assumed Delta had like random extra flights. They have a lot of random extra flights places. I don't know. They're trying to build up a little bit in Boston. It's feasible. But so I waited and waited and waited. And this is, I was there probably 45 minutes before the now delayed departure time because, LaGuardia went in the evenings, whatever. But I start hearing the conversations and this and that, and I can hear them sort of talking about assigning seats. And, okay, we got one. And they found one other guy who I think they also put on the same Boston flight as me. And then another and another. And they were talking to people. They couldn't find another volunteer. And they still needed one. And they're like, and I was like, God, I could be the one. I know. I really want to get home. And then I heard them talking, and they're like, okay, well, it's this family of 4. And it was a kid. Like one of the kids from the family was the last person to check in. So if they had to bump one, they had to basically bump the whole family, and it became a whole mess. And between knowing that and Foz having given me that idea on the Boston flight, I walked back up. I'm like, you really have a family of 4? She's like, yeah. I'm like, can you see if there's seats on the flight to Boston tonight? And she's like, yeah, I got that. And like, can you get me on the shuttle in the morning? She says, yeah. I'm like, and I handed her my passport. And she's like, are you sure? I'm like, no, but here's my passport. Just do it. Like, take it now. Take it now while I'm being, while I'm willing to take it. It ended up being fine. They put me up at the Hilton right at the airport in Boston, so I could walk straight over and straight back this morning. It was fine. I ended up being $1,000 voucher, so my Scrooge McDuck eyes got way bigger. But I don't know. I kind of really didn't want to take the bump, and I did it anyways in the end. But I don't know. It's like, am I broken? Is it wrong to not take the bump?
What do you think, Foz? I mean, you're really kind of the one egging him on.
He was providing the options and facilitating information.
I was not egging him on. There are plenty of times when I've been somewhere and I just want to get home. Like, I've had times where I've had to pass up $500-$600 bumps. Sometimes it's because I want to get home. Sometimes it's because I'm going somewhere where I can't change my plans. Sometimes it hurts, but sometimes it's like, you just need to get where you're going. And the overnight always is a wild card. Right. Do you see me doing an overnight in Detroit? Probably not. Chicago would be a little different because I know friends, I have people there and stuff like that. So part of it depends on where you're going to end up doing the overnight and how long the overnight is. Because if it's one of these things where in your situation where you get in at like 10, 11 o'clock and you have a 7 a.m. flight, I probably wouldn't do that.
Yeah, that's what mine was. It was an 8 p.m. departure. Got in at 9:15. I was in the hotel at 9:45, which was fast because it was the walkable one. And it was 7 a.m. departure this morning.
Ooh.
See, yeah. It would have been a tough call. For $1,000, I would have done it. Even at $800, I probably would have done it. But for $400 or $500, I would have just definitely walked.
I probably would have done it for $800. I probably would have given in if I had known about the Boston flight.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we ended up at. So yeah, it worked. But yeah, I think at some level, an overnight, I got home 12 hours late, 14 hours late. So $80 an hour. I mean, part of that was in a hotel, so does it really count? I don't know, but
I think you did pretty good.
I think I did okay.
Now we get to know where you go. Whenever you choose somewhere to go, you have to tell us. So
yeah, I will. Once I figure out how I'm spending that voucher, I will let you all know.
Yeah,
I have people on my Facebook page offering me cash for it. I'm just really excited. 80% discount.
Oh, really? That's what they want.
Actually, someone was willing to pay $200 and someone was willing to pay $300. So I figured I can get a bidding war started. I should be up to over 1,000 in any minute now.
Oh man. Well, we round out the show with a little discussion about Turkish baths. Seth, you kind of had an interesting experience recently. I'd like to hear the details about this.
Best I can tell, it is a typical experience.
Oh.
Doesn't mean it's not interesting, but it was, as I understand it, this is the way the Turkish baths work. So this was my 7th time in Istanbul, I think. Really big fan of the city, but for whatever reason, I either intimidated or hadn't done the research or not cared or no time, had never done a Turkish bath, and decided, having been stranded by a blizzard and flights not operating and a canceled trip home, that I had an extra day. Maybe today was finally the day to give it a go. And I did a little bit of research and ended up finding basically the most touristed one of all of them. It's right near the Grand Bazaar. It's nothing. It's old. It's from the 1584, I think, is when it was first built. So, the hammam itself is actually a cool building, and the interior, like the marble slab. So you go in. So let me back up a little bit here. So it was old. It was neat. The reviews I read were like, it's going to be a perfunctory experience, but it sort of shows you what it's supposed to be like. So you go in. It's 90 Turkish lira, I think, which is $35-$40 maybe. You get they give you a plastic token that you give to the guy that says, yes, I paid, and a sort of single-use loofah pad hand mitt thing, which is like the sponge that they scrub you down with. They give you that. They send you upstairs. You walk into a changing room, which has windows, and they're like half sandblasted and half not in stripes. So it's like semi-translucent and just transparent, but that's where you change. And the room has like a tiny little bed in it that I guess if you wanted to take a nap afterwards, you could, but they didn't seem too keen on people hanging out after for too long. And you leave all your stuff there. You lock it. You wrap the loincloth thing around yourself. And then you would trudge back downstairs through the lobby, and then someone, one of the guys who works there takes a little token from you, brings you in, and here's where it gets a little challenging, is most of them don't speak much in English, and I certainly don't speak much Turkish, so mostly gestures, some grunting, a few words here and there, but you basically come into this giant room, like 12-sided, sort of not quite round, but huge room with a domed ceiling, and it's got probably a 20 or 30 foot across marble slab in the middle that's heated, and you lay down on it, and then you basically sweat. So it's a half steam room, half this whole thing, and so you're lying there. And the idea is you start sweating your body, so that sort of your follicles open up, your body starts to sweat everything out, and your skin loosens up. And then after a few minutes of sweating, and I think probably not enough, and going back and reading the reviews, they say usually the guy comes in too soon, and you can tell him you want to sweat some more. He sort of taps you on the foot and pulls you and positions you on the edge of the slab of marble, and then starts pouring buckets of hot water over you. So if you were sweating a little bit, but now you're just drenched. And he puts the loofah pad and he starts sort of scrubbing you down. And the idea is it's pulling all the dirt and dead skin off. So it's nice. I mean, it's sort of supposed to be a massage also, but don't even, not at all. It was a joke in that regard. Vaguely stretched me out a little bit, but not really massage at all. And then, but it's like you're on one side and he sort of taps me on the shoulder. Like I have my eyes closed at this point because he keeps throwing buckets of water on me. And he sort of taps me and is like, switch. I'm like, I give you a bath now? Is that what we're doing? No, he meant flip over. So there's some gestures. So first I turned head to toe, and that was clearly wrong. And then he made more gestures, and I was like, oh, onto my stomach. Got it. So I roll onto my stomach. He scrubs my back down, keeps working on it. Then there's a pause, and my eyes are still closed, and I'm on this heated slab, sort of still sweating, being poured buckets of hot water over me. There's a pause in the pouring of the buckets, and I hear some commotion behind me, but don't really stop to figure out what it is. It's the bubble bath portion of the event. And so part of the wash is they have, basically like a soapy bubble bath that he has buckets of they sort of pour that over you then and scrub you down with a bubble bath and then pour more buckets of water to get it off of you. And at this point, the realization comes to me that there's a half-naked, overweight, middle-aged Turkish man giving me a bubble bath in a semi-public situation in Istanbul.
It's kind of funny.
It was an interesting afternoon, I'm not going to lie. I think, with a better execution on the sort of massage scrub part, it actually would have been great. After the bubble bath, they then rinse you down again, take you outside of the steam room, and you get a sort of proper shampoo experience, which is kind of just a second bubble bath at that point. I'm not sure what the difference of the soaps were, but sure. You get a second bubble bath, and then they walk away. And, at that point, they all wear a numbered tag, a plastic tag with a number engraved on it. And he points at it and reminds you, you owe me some, a tip, basically. So that part of the conversation was also particularly challenged. But I went back in and actually laid back down on the slab for probably another 20 or 30 minutes and just relaxed. And that was really nice. Sort of come down from the confusion of why I just had a bubble bath. It was actually a really cool experience. One of the other guys in there, who was clearly also a tourist, was confused about the tag thing. And why did this guy point at his tag at me? Except he was speaking French. And I speak just enough French to get myself in trouble. And when I explained to him that I don't really speak French, he just kept going. And so I was like, okay, God, what's the word for tip in French? I don't know. It turned out supplement is basically the word that the guy used. So I'm like, I can't conjugate verbs really, but I vaguely know what the verbs are. But I'm like, I think the rough translation of what I said is, he thinks that you should to be give to more money. And he understood what I meant. He responded with, oh, supplement. And I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. So, international relations. You definitely want me on your team, is what I'm saying.
Have you had this experience, Foz?
No, I have not.
No.
Can't say that I have.
I know you were in Istanbul. Have you been more than just that one time we were there together?
I didn't go with you guys that time.
You guys go on that trip? Shit. Okay, well, then never mind. Have you been to Istanbul?
I have been to Istanbul once.
Okay.
Back when you could use the U.S. Air Miles.
Oh.
40,000 intra-Asia award via Istanbul.
Right. You Istanbul to Korea in first or something?
That was Moscow to Cairo, spend 2 days in Cairo, Cairo to Istanbul, spend 3 days in Istanbul, then Istanbul, Hong Kong, to Seoul, to Tokyo, back to Istanbul.
Yeah, for 40,000 miles in business class.
First class. This was when Turkish had first.
Yeah. All right, well, that may be better than the bubble bath, but still. The bubble bath was awesome, that's all I'm saying. Bizarre as hell, but awesome.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's good times.
Interesting fun.
Have you guys, either of you, I'm going off script here, Stephen, you okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Have either of you been to Angkor Wat, Cambodia area?
I have not.
Nope.
I want to go.
Okay. Listeners, have any of you been? Really? That's awesome. So how long would you say I should spend there? Okay, you can't talk to me on the podcast, I guess, but leave a comment and let me know, please. Looking at going possibly in December, en route to Bangkok for New Year's, and either going to spend a couple days on a beach or a couple days in Angkor Wat, and that was one of the options. So would love to hear from our readers if they have some, our listeners, I guess, since this is audio, if they have some thoughts on that and what might be useful or how much time to spend. I've got some interesting responses on Twitter so far today that cover all sorts of a range. So
you want an explanation, too, of why that...
I would love to, don't just give me a number if there's no reasoning behind it. I don't need, full itineraries. 2 days, this is kind of sufficient.
Yep.
And I would love some ideas if anyone's got some. Put that out there.
Sweet.
Okay, back on script, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I think that wraps up the show. Let's go around at the table and tell everyone where they can find you online. I'm
Foz on Twitter as FozM or occasionally on upgrd.com.
Awesome. I am Seth, also known as Wandering Airman, WANDR.me or just at WNDRME on Instagram and Twitter.
I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me on Twitter at SSeagraves. I blog every now and then at badice.com. You can find Dots, Lines, and Destinations at moredotmorelines.com or on Twitter where we are at DotsLines. Thanks for listening. Good talking to you guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Sweet.